Hi guys, Rick Pete back here with another video for you. As you can see, this is my WCW World Heavyweight Championship or Big Gold Belt, which is exactly what this video is all about. Again, it's another one in the series of sort of like a brief history of a little bit about type thing. Like I've said before, all my videos about my belts are going to be used about my replicas because all my replicas have been bought because I've liked the belt. None of my replicas have been bought just for the sake of buying a belt. So there will be more videos to come. Hopefully you'll enjoy them. So without further ado, here's a little bit about the WCW Big Gold World Heavyweight Championship. Basically, as all the knowledge, like my other videos, has been taken from scouring the internet, reading up, Wikipedia, Google, books, biographies, excuse me, etc. So yeah, all my information's come from there. Just researching basically various sites, sources, just to gain enough knowledge. Hopefully, like I've said before, they won't be long and boring. This one, when I did some research, there are some things that will come to later that certainly made me sort of shake my head and have to double check, make sure I've read it properly. But obviously, we'll come to these later on. So yeah, onto it, the Big Gold. This belt started in WCW in 1991 and stayed all the way through till 2001 when WWE bought out WCW, which was in the March of 2001, where it became one of the two titles in the WWF. It's went from being the WCW World Heavyweight Championship to just the WCW Championship, and then it eventually just became known as the World Championship by about November of that year. It went with the WWF Championship as a separate title until September 2nd. Sorry, it was unified excuse me, with the WWF Championship in December, when they were unified to create the undisputed WWF Championship. And then in September 2002, the actual belt, which had always been known as the Big Gold, was restored by WWE, as it was then, to represent their World Heavyweight Championship. But there were no, company name where the everybody knew it as a WWE World Heavyweight Championship, but it was just known as the World Heavyweight Championship. So yeah, a little bit about its history. In 1988 even, Turner Broadcasting purchased Jim Crockett Promotions, which had been running under the name NWA World Championship Wrestling, while it was still a member of, obviously, the NWA. The NWA name was gradually reduced on its television programming, and it just became known as World Championship Wrestling, or WCW. On the 11th of January 1991, Ric Flair defeated Sting to win the NWA World Heavyweight Championship and was recognised then as the WCW World Heavyweight Champion. The new championship wasn't initially represented by its own title belt, and WCW carried on using the NWA World Heavyweight Championship belt. While they were doing this, WCW regularly claimed the NWA World Championship, lineaged its history for its own. In 1991, there was a creative disagreement between WCW Executive Vice President, a guy called Jim Herd, which led to Ric Flair jumping ship from the WCW to go to World Wrestling Federation. I've read this in the Ric Flair biography that Hurd refused to return Flair's deposit. That, you know, every champion that day had to put a deposit down on the title. I think it was more like for insurance purposes. And Flair had deposited $25,000 with the NWA. Hurd refused to refund him. So Flair basically, as anybody knows who's been watching wrestling for a long time, and you know, obviously newer fans who've looked into the history of stuff, went to WWF and took this belt with him. And then he started proclaiming himself, you know, the real world champion. WWF, as it were, then couldn't show it on TV due to NWA, you know, and lawsuits, etc. So they gave Flair, I think it was an old tag belt or something, that he carried around, and you know, it was shown at house shows. There is actually footage of him with this belt, because I have seen it. I'm not sure whether it was on a pay-per-view or whether it was on some WWF television, but I know for a fact I remember seeing Ric Flair with this belt. Now, whether that was before lawsuits were threatened, I'm not sure, but I do remember Flair being seen with this belt, the big gold, on TV, and I remember thinking, that is a gorgeous belt. Even as a kid, thinking, wow, that just looks a world championship, you know, world titles sort of thing. So anyway, yeah, so Flair kept the big gold that, you know, went to WWF. WCW in the meantime was forced to use a belt owned by Dusty Rhodes from the championship wrestler from Florida promotion. It was a gold coloured plate tacked on, and it had the words WCW World Heavyweight Champion. That was awarded to Lex Luger after he beat Barry Windham in a cage match for the vacant championship at the Great American Bash in 1991. Shortly after that, a new WCW, original WCW design belt was created. So in late 91, Big Gold was used for the now revived NWA World Heavyweight Championship, which was a co-promotional gimmick between WCW and New Japan Pro Wrestling. September 93, WCW left the NWA for good over a dispute about other NWA members demanding that the NWA World Champion be available for booking, and due to the use of the NWA World Heavyweight Championship on programming recorded months in advance. So by the back end of 1993, Rick Rude was appearing at the Disney tapings, which is where WCW did, and NWA did some filming, as the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. Despite that, in fact, regarding to storyline, Flair, who would come back to WCW and regain the title, was still champion. After leaving the NWA, WCW kept the big gold, and it was renamed the WCW International World Heavyweight Championship. Starrcade 93, Flair won the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. He beat Big Van Vader. WCW decided to unify the WCW World Heavyweight Championship, represented by the new belt, and the International Championship, represented by the big gold belt, by having Flair wrestle Sting in 1994. Flair won, and the WCW International Heavyweight Championship belt replaced the old WCW World Heavyweight Championship belt, while the International Heavyweight Championship itself was just scrapped, binned. Then, during Hollywood Hogan's 96-97 run as champion, as part of the NWO storyline, everybody knows, they spray painted NWO on the belt, and then they referred to it, you know, the members of the NWO referred to it as the NWO World Heavyweight Championship. March 2001, the World Wrestling Federation purchased WCW, and then not long after that they did the invasion angle, and then there were 4 of WCW's championships defended on WWF TV, including the WCW World Heavyweight Championship, which just became known as the WCW Championship. WWF carried over this title along with the United States title, the Cruiserweight and the WCW Tag Team titles. So it's got a massive history, right up until WWE introduced it. The list of people who held it is phenomenal. It basically reads, I mean, going back to its NWA days, and then the on-off relationship with WCW and NWA. It just basically is a who's who of wrestling, really. So many great champions. Obviously, like I say, I'm not going to read everything off. The notes I've made, just sort of going to skip through them. But I, sat reading it. I was amazed at the people that had held it, that I didn't know had held it. So I'm not going to go into the full history because it will just take forever and it will get really boring. Basically, all I've done, like I've just read out there, is just some brief notes I made about the belt, and its history. If you want to know more, obviously Google is your friend. That's all I did. Google, Wikipedia, that sort of thing. I'm also now going to go on a bit more about some of the WCW champions and some of the matches that it was involved in and some other facts. I can honestly say during its tenure in WCW, this title was vacated a lot. I couldn't believe how many times it had been vacated. There were some controversial and just outright weird title holders, people that shouldn't be allowed anywhere near a wrestling championship, have held it, and there were some really strange matches which I'll get to later on. So yeah, like I said, vacated July '91. Like I said, when Flair took it for the took it to the WWF. He was stripped of the title. It was vacated in 1994 at the Spring Stampede. Flair versus Ricky Steamboat resulted in a double pin. This one is actually unrecognised by WWE, who consider Flair a 6-time WCW champion. His first reign was as an NWA champion, but it was extended to being a WCW champion. Halloween Havoc 1995, the Giant, or Big Show as we know him as, won the title in a match where the title could only change hands by disqualification. Usually if you get disqualified, champion retains, even though they can lose a match. Our challenger loses out. This could only be won in a match where disqualifications were allowed. Which, given who his opponent was a good idea, because people know it was the Giant's first title match. It was against Hollywood Hogan, and he defeated him, because up until then, obviously NWO, whenever it looked like Hogan was in jeopardy, they'd come out and just beat the holy hell out of whoever was in the ring with him, which always resulted in a DQ. Hogan kept the belt. So yeah, Jimmy Hart interfered. Giant wins. It was then vacated again in November of November the 6th, 1995, on Nitro, when the Giant was stripped of the belt because of the controversial finish of the Halloween Havoc match. That, as a side note, is what happens when you let your talent write and have control over, their storylines, etc. Like Hogan had creative control. Never give talent creative control. WCW learned that the hard way. basically Hogan refusing to do very little for new talent and step aside and admit that there were people more deserving of a title run than himself. So December 97, Starrcade, Sting won the title. Hogan first pinned Sting in this match, but the guest referee was Bret Hart, who by this time had obviously jumped to WCW, accused the first referee, Nick Patrick, of making a fast count and restarted the match. Sting won by submission. Surprise, surprise, January 8th, 1998, on Thunder. Title was vacated due to the controversy over the finish of the match. So, you know, again, vacant title. And then on January the 4th, there was the infamous finger poke of doom incident. Kevin Nash versus Hollywood Hogan, for the title. Up to this point, there'd been the NWO, and then there was starting to be a bit of friction, and obviously the Wolfpack came in, and it sort of looked like the two factions were going to go at it. And obviously then it came to this, Nash versus Hogan for the world title. Everybody expected a match. Hulk Hogan pokes Kevin Nash. He dropped like he'd just been shot. I'm surprised he didn't tear something like a quad or something while they were doing it. And lo and behold, Hulk Hogan, Hollywood Hogan, once again champion. October 25th, 99, Sting was stripped of the title after he lost a non-sanctioned match to Goldberg and attacked Charles Robinson, the referee, who was also known as Little Nate. That was at the Halloween Havoc. November 99, Toronto, Ontario, at WCW Mayhem. Bret Hart defeated Chris Benoit in a tournament final. 20th of December, the same year, on the Nitro, Hart vacated the title because of a controversial match with Bill Goldberg at Starrcade, 99. They had a rematch later on that night. Hart beat Goldberg, so Bret Hart became WCW champion. We'll go into year 2000, January, at the sold out pay-per-view. Hart had to vacate the title due to injury. Chris Benoit beat Sid Vicious that night to win the title. The next day on Nitro, Benoit forfeited the title, left, and a massive argument with WCW management. Just basically forfeited the title, left, went to WWF. The rest, as they say, is history. Obviously, I mean, like wrestling wise, not what happened. So January 24th, 2000, Sid Vicious defeated Kevin Nash after he defeated the Harris brothers for the right to wrestle Nash for the belt. The next night, on Thunder, the title was vacated. Vicious was stripped of it by, surprise surprise, Commissioner Kevin Nash, due to Sid pinning the wrong Harris brother. And then again, in a massive surprise where you shouldn't let your talent have creative control, Nash awarded himself the title. And that one is not actually listed on the title history or lineage, whatever you want to call it, WWE.com. They don't actually mention anything about that, which is surprising, really, because they like to think they're up to date. Although WWE have been known to make up facts, but you know, I digress. April 10th, 2000, Nitro. All the WCW titles were declared vacant by Vince Russo and Eric Bischoff after WCW was rebooted. This, of course, is the point where Vince Russo went to WCW, claiming to be the be-all and end-all when it comes to wrestling writers, claiming credit for everything that had happened at WWF. By this point, WWF were absolutely trouncing WCW in the ratings war. Russo went over to WCW. I remember watching it, and he was heavily involved in storylines and carrying a baseball bat and just thinking it was the best thing since sliced bread, and I just really wanted somebody to just break his neck. To this day, cannot stand Vince Russo. I know a lot of people feel the same. I know he has his fans. Personally, not a fan of Vince Russo. I think the guy's an absolute schmuck. But, you know, again, I digress. So yeah, all the titles were vacated in 2000, rebooted WCW. So in on a Thunder episode, David Arquette, David Arquette, Courtney Cox's husband, pinned Eric Bischoff in a tag team title match, which also featured DDP and Jeff Jarrett, two actual wrestlers who probably could have put on a great match. Storylines, obviously, at WCW at the time were terrible, I believe is the word I'm looking for. So yeah, David Arquette pins Bischoff and becomes the champion. As the stipulation of the match declared, the wrestler who got, or the person who got the pinfall, would be champion. David Arquette pinned Eric Bischoff. I'll say that once more, just so you know, let it sink in. The guy who married Courtney Cox Arquette, Courtney Cox Arquette, was WCW champion. That aired in April of 2000. Now, I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure, off the top of my head, this was about the same time the Ready to Rumble film was out, starring David Arquette and a couple of other people. I can't remember the name of them. The guy who's currently in Hawaii Five-0 at the moment, TV series, the blonde dude. And he had a bit part in Gone in 60 Seconds as well, I think. But yeah, he were in it. And the guy who played the King, I can't remember. As well as some WCW wrestlers. Goldberg was in it. I think DDP's in it. Can't really remember, but I think it's about that time. So obviously WCW tried to tie that in to their storyline and included it. So yeah, David Arquette was WCW champion. A lot of people will remember that. For those of you who don't, Google it. Google David Arquette and then get a picture. Google any of the WCW top tier wrestlers at the time. Your Jeff Jarrett's, your Goldbergs, your Booker T's. I say that reluctantly. Never been a Booker T fan. Your Scott Steiners at a push. You know, your Hollywood Hogans. David Arquette was chosen to be champion. But, you know, I'm not going to dwell on that. We'll move on. September 2000 on Nitro, Vince Russo won a steel cage match to become the champion. Again, don't get the reason for that. The story writer writes himself in as champion, yet also claims to not have any sort of ego. Right, so yeah, so Vince Russo was WCW champion. Again, title was vacated on the October the 2nd Nitro, when Russo decided he wasn't a wrestler and didn't want the title. So basically he wrote himself into glory and then just dropped the title because, you know, I believe more than likely WCW would have been getting a lot of crap and lost a lot of viewers over the fact that he was the champion. So on that same night, October the 2nd on the Nitro, Booker T defeated Jeff Jarrett in it. Now I googled this. Like I said, a lot of my history that I got here from Google, Wikipedia, etc. Booker T defeated Jeff Jarrett in a San Francisco 49ers match. Now, being in the UK, I'm not really up on NFL. I have heard of the San Francisco 49ers. I've also heard of the New England Patriots. That's more through Family Guy. I have no idea what a San Francisco 49ers match involves. I'm toying with the idea of checking it out, but given the direction WCW was going at the time, I just don't know if I dare, if I have enough motivation or inclination to check it out, given some of the dirge that they were spewing out at that time. So yeah, if anybody has seen that match, please comment and just tell me whether it is actually worth checking out, or whether I'm better just boiling my head. Anyway, moving on. November, on the Mayhem, WCW Mayhem, Scott Steiner won the title in a straight jacket steel cage match. Pretty sure the title will give away everything that needs to be known there. Again, given the way WCW was going, I really don't know if I'm inclined to check this match out either. Again, if anybody has seen that match and it is worth watching, feel free to leave a comment, and let me know. But I don't know if I'm inclined to check that out, because it sounds bad. Chances are it will be bad. Anyway, moving on. So we get to March 2001. March 26th to be exact. Nitro from Panama City Beach, Florida. Very momentous Nitro, as it was the final edition, the final ever Monday Nitro. Booker T won the title, and then obviously that started the whole invasion angle. WCW had already been purchased by WWF. Obviously they very cleverly ran the angle where Shane was at the Nitro in Florida, and then started the whole, it has been purchased by McMahon, but it wasn't you, it was me, hence starting the whole invasion angle, which, may I add, as a personal note, I actually enjoyed. It was nice to see some of the WCW talent given a chance to perform in front of a crowd. It must have been a surprise to a lot of them to be given a decent storyline and not have to go out of their way to try and get an NWO t-shirt on to get on TV, for those who've been there a while. Obviously a lot of WCW talent didn't come straight over. It took years before we saw Sting. Goldberg took a while. Scott Steiner took a while. Some other talent we just never saw. There were a lot of the mid-carders went over to join the invasion angle. Some did really well for themselves, some not so well, but that's one of those things. So then it once to start the invasion angle, the WCW World Championship was just referred to as the WCW Championship. July 24th, Kurt Angle became the first person to win the WCW Championship on WWF programming. That actually aired on July the 26th, because obviously they did SmackDown on one night and then it was aired a couple of days later, which is still the case now. 5th of November 2001, the title became known as the World Championship after the whole Alliance storyline had finished and after the demise of the Alliance. So it just became known as the World Championship. Vengeance 2001, as we all know, the title was unified with the WWF title when Jericho beat Austin and Rock to become the first undisputed champion. I'm not sure, but I do think that over the following years Jericho may have mentioned it a couple of times on programming, quite rightly so. Basically, not many people get to beat two champions the caliber of Stone Cold and The Rock in one night. So yeah, and then obviously that led to the undisputed title. So that's like the brief history and a couple of the strange matches that it were in, a couple of the weird champions, a few, obviously, like I mentioned, it were vacated a lot. Most of it, from what I can gather from my research, was due to storylines, like the Vince Russo writing himself into winning it and then writing himself out of it again. David Arquette, just wow. And they wonder why they went bust. So yeah, I've got a couple more facts for you. Top 5 people with the longest reigns and the most reigns. Number 1, no surprise really. Well, it was actually to me at first, and then the more I thought about it, the more I realised it wasn't a surprise, given the fact that, like I said earlier in the video, it was given complete creative control of his contracts, which should never be done. So number 1, you got Hulk, or Hollywood Hogan. He had 6 reigns with the title, and they lasted combined 1,177 days. I do remember watching WCW, and it did seem like Hogan had the belt forever. He just seemed to constantly be champion, whether it be Hulk when he first went in and pretty much straight away won the belt, and then later became Hollywood, where he had more control over his contract, like I said, and more creative control, and just decided that he weren't going to do whatever they decided had been written. He was just going to change everything on the night. I've read that in books. Obviously, you have to take everything you read with a pinch of salt. But you do if you read it in one book. You read it in 2 or 3 different people's biographies, you tend to think there's something to it. So yeah, Hogan was the one who had the longest reign. Secondly is the Nature Boy Ric Flair. He had 8 reigns with the title, and they lasted a combined 501 days. I don't remember seeing Flair when I watched WCW as champion. Obviously, like given my DVD collection, I have seen Ric Flair with the WCW Championship. But when I watched it as a teenager, I honestly don't remember seeing Ric Flair as champion. But yeah, he was the second longest running champion, like I said, with combined days. Third was Big Van Vader. He had 3 reigns. They lasted 377 days combined. I think Vader had not really been much in WCW when I started watching it. I think he may have gone back to WWF. I'm not sure. Vader was a guy that I did like. I've grown more to appreciate him as I've got older, and you learn more about wrestling. Fourth, Booker T. He had 5 reigns, and they lasted 253 days. And then 5th was Sting, who I do remember holding the title. He had 6 reigns, lasting a combined 250 days. I do remember seeing Sting with the title. One of my favourite wrestlers, and I don't know if you can pick it up on there, don't think the camera will pick it up, Goldberg, it's the nameplate I've got on. I do have a Sting one as well, but you know, Goldberg is my favourite, so the Goldberg plate stays on. He held it, he had 1 reign, and which lasted 174 days. I remember Goldberg's reign, I loved it. I was annoyed how they ended it. It was Nash beating him. Given the fact as well that I've read since that I believe Nash was in charge of the booking at the time. He was running who did what, you know. For those of you who don't know what booking is, basically he booked matches and the outcomes, so he decided essentially who the champion should be. And obviously it came as no surprise, he booked himself to beat Goldberg and just, you know, end Goldberg's undefeated streak, which was wrong. And they did it with the cattle prod and everything. It wasn't like it was a squash match, there was some underhanded tactics, but still, that's just Nash and his ego again. It's another reason why I've never been a Kevin Nash fan. Didn't mind him as Diesel, and then he went to WCW, played a brilliant heel, but you know, you read books, you watch DVDs and you pick up things, and you see people like on videos when they don't know they're being filmed, you know. The advent of camera phones obviously has put everybody on their toes, and you see, I've seen footage of, you know, Kevin Nash, and you know, 1 minute he'll be being really nice when he's taking pictures with people, and then he's just a complete tool the next. So he ended Goldberg's title run, Ron Simmons was the first African American to hold the title. Ron Simmons, who became Farouk in the WWF and WWE. I don't know if he's well remembered for being the first African American to hold the WCW title, or whether he's most remembered for his damn catchphrase. Obviously I can't do it as good as he can because he's just got the deep booming voice. Again, another one of my favourite wrestlers, and this may start some controversy, and I apologise in advance. Chris Benoit, who I choose to remember for the wrestling, not for what happened. His reign only lasted the one day. I say he won the title on the pay-per-view and left the next day. To me, that was WCW's loss and the WWE's gain in the long run. I like I've said, choose to remember Benoit, the wrestler, not what happened. I'm not going to get into it. Everybody has their own opinions on it. A lot of people believe what they've heard in the media. Other people look for conspiracy theories. That's just your personal choice. But yeah, I believe that given a good chance in WCW, Chris Benoit could have been as good a champion for them as he was for the WWE when he became world champion. But yeah, again, we'll never know. His reign only lasted one day. So yeah, that's my video on the WCW World Heavyweight Title. Hope it hasn't bored you. Hope you've enjoyed it. Like I said, there's been some interesting facts there. If anybody has seen the two matches I mentioned, the San Francisco 49ers match and the straight jacket steel cage match, please leave a comment and let me know whether they are worth tracking down, and whether they're on YouTube or not. I don't know if they will be. If they are worth watching, and then if they are, I will definitely check it out and do an update video, just a brief one just to say, yeah, I've watched it, and yeah, go for it, watch it, it's great, or avoid it. So yeah, thanks again for watching. Hope you've enjoyed the video. That's my brief history of the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. That's all for now, folks. I'll catch you again soon with a new video. Thanks for watching. Bye.